long as possible. We call him Doc. Welcome to Combat Vet Vision. And now your host, Aaron Chief Seaver.
Hey, welcome to Combat Vet Vision. This is where we really get to talk about a lot of our history, and I mean when I talk about myself, other combat vets that get on here, our sponsors, supporters, volunteers that may get on here and talk about why and what they're doing to help our veterans. This is to educate the public and give them a chance to kind of understand maybe some deeper things that go on in the mind and the lives of our combat vets and what we're trying to do in our lives, what we've done, and some of the other things. And again, this is my opinion. This is my life, and this is my guest's opinion. This is their life story. This is what they've done. They've gone through, and their triumphs, their failures, their everything in between. Some really incredible stories. I have Eric Pettepher on today, and he's an awesome Army veteran. He's actually a buddy of mine, part of the PTSD Foundation of America. And again, I talk about Warrior Built in the PTSD Foundation a lot, but he works directly for the PTSD Foundation Georgia chapter. He was in Texas doing a lot of things. He's going to talk a lot about that. He's actually gone through the program because he needed it to the point where now he is assistant manager down in Georgia doing some really incredible things. And we're going to get some of the other guys from PTSD Foundation on Warrior Built, different individuals they've been on. So please check out the show. Please check out the past. But Eric, welcome to the show, buddy, and thanks a lot for your stories, your history, your service to our country. And you've been wounded. You've been dealing with a lot of things too in your life, and gone through hell and back.
I appreciate you having me, man. It's been a journey.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about what was it that you joined the Army for, and then let's get into some of these deployments and some of the things that really affected you in your combat experiences and stuff of that nature too.
Okay, so I joined the Army right out of high school. Kind of came from a family of it. Grandfather fought in Europe in World War II. Dad and uncle in Vietnam. I actually initially wanted to be a Navy fighter pilot, but I was a terrible math student. So when I had to drop geometry to graduate high school on time, I decided I'd just jump out of planes instead. So I joined the Army and went to the 82nd Airborne Division. Just missed Desert Shield, Desert Storm. It ended when I was in airborne school. Reported to Fort Bragg, was there from 91 to 95. We were supposed to jump into Haiti in September of 94. I had injured my knee in a rodeo accident. Actually, I rode bulls for a while. So I was on the airland part of that operation, and but they got no go, just shy of the drop in. So pretty much got out with no deployments other than training. My first time in, got out and separated for 9 years total. And in 2003, I'm sitting there, working for a Fortune 500 insurance company in Georgia. And, in my cozy little cubicle, and there's, 2 wars going on. And, I was 10% disabled from a bad jump back in the 90s, no big deal. But I felt like, I really ought to be, doing something. I felt like I still had something to offer. There's a lot of kids, that joined up for college money or whatever, and never really experienced life much. And, they were coming home, beat up, missing parts, some of them not making it back. And, I felt like, having the training and use the training, even though not in combat, more than, just basic, maybe that, my experience and just life in general, able to handle stressful situations and, maturity might help, bridge the gap between some of these guys and the older soldiers, because I'd be going back in, at the same rank I got out at, 9 years prior in E4, having, being 34 years old, having, a little bit more life experience. And so I joined a National Guard unit that did long range surveillance and reconnaissance in the Georgia Guard. Because at the time, I was married, had 2 sons, and didn't think my ex-wife would, pick up and move whenever the Army wanted her to. So I joined this unit in the Guard, but didn't deploy with them. And then 2007, decided to go back on active duty, back to the 82nd Airborne at Fort Bragg. Literally signed in to Fort Bragg on the 3rd of January, 2007, and was at Bagram Air Base waiting on a ride down to Kandahar on the 19th. We when I got to Bragg, I kind of looked around to see who was going where, when, and my old unit had reflagged with a reorg of the Army, and they were getting ready to deploy to Afghanistan. So I went down and talked to the commander and sergeant major there and asked for, a spot with them to go. And they gave me a letter of acceptance, and I took it down to the reception station. And, when the orders got cut, I went with that unit. So we deployed quick to a 15-month deployment. Initially it was supposed to be 12 months. While we were en route, the whole mission changed. We were supposed to replace the 10th Mountain out on the border with Pakistan, and they decided they wanted to add another brigade, infantry brigade. So they kept the 10th Mountain where they were, and sent us down to Kandahar. And we were the theater tactical force for ISAF, International Security Assistance Force, for those who don't know, basically NATO. And they spun up the 173rd Airborne Brigade out of Italy to go replace the 10th Mountain. And we took our mission based out of Kandahar. And we took all our missions straight from my ISAF command. We lived pretty cush on Kandahar in between missions. Had it pretty good with all the amenities there that you can have, before deployed. But we'd go out on missions all over regional command south and east. So a lot of work out in the Helmand province, some in Kandahar, and we did some work out of Nangarhar, Jalalabad, that area. I actually got to spend about a month up at OP Restrepo. We relieved the 173rd there for about 25 days or so for them to go back to blessing and rest and refit. And so that was a different experience, a whole different area up there. But prior to that, we also we got pulled out of Kandahar and sent out to JBAD. We took part of a mission with the 3rd Ranger Battalion to go into Tora Bora, looking for Bin Laden. They didn't tell that he was back out in Tora Bora. And we went out on that mission. It's actually a reference to the movie Zero Dark 30, the August 07 failed Bin Laden mission. Weather kept us back for about a week and a half. And by the time we got out there, of course, he's nowhere to be seen. Then, after that, we went out to the Korengal for a while and then back to Kandahar. And I guess our biggest mission was we went on a Pearl Harbor Day, December 7th of 07, into the city of Musa Clay. Which was pretty much the hotbed, for the Taliban in that area. And we went in with the Brits. It was a 22-ship air assault. At the time, I believe it was considered the largest air assault in the global war on terror. Retook the city in about 3 days, stayed on for presence patrols and follow-on operations till about the middle of January of 08, before we came out of there. There's actually a couple of books written about that one, Operation Snake Biting into the Viper's Nest, by Stephen Gray, I believe, and one from a British standpoint and one from the American one. And that was probably the longest firefight, or I guess contact I was in. It was kind of a progressive thing. It started early in the morning of the 8th and kind of went all day. So on and off, about 10 hours worth of sporadic gunfights, just all over that area that we were working. Got involved in a friendly fire incident, unfortunately, on one of our ops. An Apache came in to fire support for us, and the shrapnel from the 30 Mike rounds hit 3 of the guys in my squad. I was pulling rear security as we were moving down a road. And we made contact right outside of a mosque, and they rolled in and fired a 10-round burst from the chain gun. And, at that point, that was, everything kind of went silent. And I just felt the thumping of the gun in my chest, just the concussion. And the trees, started to come apart all around us. And I stopped for a second. I just come back from R&R. And for that brief second, I'm like, this is it, at the moment, at the time I thought, the Taliban had gotten, a cruiser weapon up, to our left flank and firing through the trees, not realizing exactly what had happened at the time. And once all the debris settled and everything, and the hearing came back, we started getting calls of, I'm hit. And the squad leader, grenadier, and saw gunner were hit in the lower extremities by shrapnel from those exploding rounds, because the 30 Mike rounds, explode on impact. And we had to we had to get them, evac back, tourniquets on 2 of them, I believe. And that was really my first firefight after we got them inside the house and the safe house that we had and got them, triaged and treated. We called in a medevac, and they asked for volunteers to go out for LZ security for the medevac to come in. And I volunteered with an E7 in our platoon and a few other guys. And we went out to do security in the poppy field. And as the Chinook came in, it was a British Chinook. They brought their own security with them. They tied in with us, and they loaded up the wounded. And right as the Chinook was lifting off to take them out, we started taking fire from across this poppy field. And so that's twice in one day. I'm like, okay, so now it's going to be in a poppy field. I'm going to die in a dope field. Those are probably two of the most chaotic moments, I guess, in that deployment. I think a lot of people, get this disillusion sometimes that, from the movies that combat is, it balls out all day long, every day, and it's like I was told, it's a lot of times it's long periods of boredom interrupted by brief moments of chaos. So it's not always, the constant all day gunfight, but
yeah, that's a great way to state it. Yep. That's very true.
Those were a couple of the moments that, stuck out most with me. And I think, the friendly fire incident was probably the one that kind of hit me the hardest, kind of stuck with me, because it was just like, that was, it could have been a lot worse than it was. Luckily I was farther back in the forward element that was moving down the road, to where I wasn't, affected by that. But, having to get those guys out under the conditions that we were, because we were in the process of clearing a section of a village, out in the Helmand province, and it's at any time we could have made contact again. So it's like, give these guys the treatment they need, but we got to do it in a hurry, and get off the X and get them, behind cover. But yeah, it was a pretty eventful deployment there during the surge, 07 and 08, and again it got extended out to 15 months. And at this point, I was going to retire. I was going to stay in and retire after coming back after a 9-year break. And, but definitely toward the end of the deployment, I decided that, at my age, being 34 and, just a team leader, most of my peers were E7s and E8s because they didn't have that 9-year break. So I was a team leader, over, a couple of 19, 20-year-old kids that were, flexible and rubbery and young. And, here I am, 34 and got metal parts in my body from a bull riding accident back during my break-in service and everything. And it's like, well, I'm going to stay in, but I'm going to reclass out of the infantry. I was going to reclass into PSYOP so I could stay, on jump status at Fort Bragg and, be not too far from my kids. And our very last mission of our deployment, I had just made E5, and my squad leader wanted me to, organize and, lead a patrol out, actual combat patrol, start to finish. So I'd have that experience, before our deployment ended. And we were patrolling through a village in the Uruzgan province of Afghanistan, and looking for, bad guys' weapons. It's typical stuff, just clearing, house by house. And we kind of came around a bend. We were between the village and a wadi, a dried out riverbed. And we were coming in line with a doorway that was completely blacked out. There was no door. It was just dark, no curtain or anything. And I didn't know if there was, an ambush waiting in that door or anything. I didn't want to walk, the patrol right up into it. So I had the guys, the wall into his poppy field on the other side of the wall. And not knowing that the ground on the other side of the wall was lower than the ground that we were on, on the left side of the wall, I snapped my ankle as I came, landed on the other side. And tore up my foot and ankle pretty good, and had to get evac'd out the next day. And that misdiagnosis, all of our medics were out on the ops still, so I was at the mercy of the Canadian medics that were running Kandahar's hospital there, Roll 3, and they said that even though an Air Force doctor and an SF medic initially diagnosed it as a fractured ankle and foot, they swore that those were old fractures that had healed and that I just had a sprained ankle. And so that was treated as such. And we deployed back to Bragg. back in April and continued to have issues with it. So finally, by about September, I guess the medics got tired of seeing me every week, and telling me, Sergeant, you're just having foot pain. And I'm like, well, it's still swollen and it still hurts, so something's not right. They finally got tired of seeing me and sent me back to get x-rayed again. And at this point, they had made me the unit armorer because I couldn't really do a lot of infantry stuff with a messed up foot. And we were taking our night vision over to get TI'd by the civilian contractors. And my phone rings, and it's my platoon medic from Afghanistan, Doc Rob, and he said, "Hey, Sergeant Pete." That was my nickname over there, was Pete. My last name, I guess, was too long for everybody, so I just kind of chopped it in half. He said, "What are you doing?" And I told him, and he said, "Well, you need to get back to work. Your ankle's broken." And so here we've been doing airborne operations, regular PT, 5-mile runs, rope marches, from April to September. So long story short, I ended up with a degenerative arthritis in my foot and ankle, and got med-boarded out in October of 2009, 10 years short of retirement. So that was kind of the brief run of my total 10 years military service. And so I got sent home, and my plans at that time, everything had banked on staying in the military. I had just gotten remarried, had a baby on the way, and now I'm back in Georgia without a job, in a loaner house from my now ex-in-laws. And, it was, jobs were, real scarce in 2008. And I wasn't being picky. I was just trying to get something. And I was out of work for 2 years. And, that led to, a lot of downtime, when I wasn't looking for jobs and that type of thing. And, unfortunately I was on chronic pain management through the VA, and, got in a bad way with opiates. They made them very plentiful, and I started abusing them really bad, and started shopping around for them. Eventually, I did end up, finally getting a job doing armed security with Lockheed Martin Aeronautics, and had really good insurance and everything, so it was really easy to fill in the gaps, for the VA meds. And it started a really dark journey for me, going through dissociation issues. I think overseas, I had the ability just to shut off emotion to everything, and I carried it home with me. I wasn't able to turn that back on when I came back, and it's not a good way to be when you're a husband and father. You got 3 kids, 2 from a previous marriage, and then a baby daughter. Needed to be working and supporting my family and being a father. And, it's really hard to do when you just have no emotion to anything. And then, most of the time I was high on pain pills, and, if I didn't have pain pills, I was drinking a lot because the withdrawals were terrible. And it got to a point where, I was, it's kind of embarrassing to admit, but I was going into work at Lockheed, carrying a gun, an arm post, and I was popping Percocet before roll call, because I found that it had, the opposite effect on me. Opiates they weren't a downer for me. They just got me spun up, and I didn't sleep. So working third shift, it was convenient. I didn't have to worry about falling asleep on shift or anything, 10-hour shift at night. And I think that helped, lead to the abuse of it, because I was obviously taking more than I was supposed to, because I found another use for them, more or less. And I was working an armed post, with live rounds, high on pain pills, and that is cycle just kind of kept running down for me. And I don't know where in the story you want me to continue on, or where I want to go, where you want me to go with this. So. I'll stop right here for a minute.
Eric, if you want to bring us to the point where, you ended up going down, obviously a dark path, and you actually had to get some help, and talk about getting that help, talk about, Camp Hope, what it did for you, and then, what you're doing now because of that help, and what your motivation is. I mean, you got a great story, man. And obviously there's a lot going on and all that. And the responsibility, I think, one of the things that you hit up on was the lack of emotion, and we talked about it a little bit before, how you would build this aura about yourself to go out, and you'd be like, I would just put the pissed off attitude on because I didn't want anybody to affect me.
Right.
Or, you didn't want to have the interactions. And if you did, they were like short because nobody wanted to deal with you.
Yeah.
Probably. So, and I think that was really cool that you told me about that, because so often I think we all put a certain aura. I mean, me as a combat vet, a lot of us, as we talk about each other, we all go through life and we throw this aura about us that really kind of turns off a good portion of the people that we might meet through the day, our families especially. And I think getting back in touch with our emotions and trying to throw some love on top of all the criticalness of the knife hand to our kids or the family, like, hey, do it right or don't do it at all. It's like, hey, I love you, but maybe when you're, maybe not two years old, maybe you don't need the knife hand. I don't know how. The response, obviously, that response doesn't carry on. So talk about some of that stuff, man.
It's funny. It's funny you said that though, because it's funny you said that though, because I came home from work one day when I was still in the military, and I had my temper up about something, and came in the door and kind of laid into my ex-wife a little bit, and she just looked at me and she said, she said, I'm not one of your soldiers, and you're not going to talk to me that way. But yeah, so so the opiate thing, it got pretty bad. I was given multiple chances, to kind of get myself together by my family, and I was kind of middle fingers to the world at that point. I just really didn't care, and I was gonna do me. It was Eric's world, and everybody else was just there, as a guest. And if you didn't like it, you could pick up a rope. I came in from work one Sunday afternoon, and I had run out of my medication and was withdrawing pretty bad. And I knew that, a few drinks would get rid of that. And, at that point had, made the promise of not drinking, so I was doing pretty good, not drinking, because I had pain pills, I didn't need them. I didn't need drink if I had pain pills. So everybody thought I was doing great. I was, towing the line for a year and a half, being that, that present husband and father and brother and son and all that. And everybody was clueless. So me and my ex-wife got in an argument that afternoon when she caught me drinking, and that led to her leaving the house, and me blowing my top. I went straight blew a gasket, and we got into this huge fight, and I threatened her and her parents, and well, essentially, I threatened to kill them. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And to me, I'm naturally sarcastic, wise ass, and you add alcohol, it makes it worse. But my ex-father-in-law took me serious, and he called the law, and they contacted me and said that they needed to talk to me about some threats I had made to some family members. And I quickly told them that there was nothing to talk about. I was going to go to sleep and take care of it, the next day. And they said, no, we really need to come talk to you. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, if you come out here, we're going to have a gunfight. At that point, I pretty much assumed that, I had burned my last chance, and, that was going to be it as far as my marriage and being an everyday dad. I was going to have to, I was already a part-time father to my sons from my first marriage. And, the prospect of having to, face that again with my daughter was just, I was just like, what, I'd rather not be here. I didn't want to kill myself, but I didn't want to be here. I just figured that everybody'd be better off without me. And, I didn't want to leave that legacy of killing myself. As stupid as this sounds, I didn't want to leave a legacy of killing myself, but I was okay with leaving a legacy of dying in a gunfight with the police. I mean, that's just some of the insanity that comes with it, So, right. I challenged the local county sheriff's department to a gunfight, and they showed up, about 6 or 8 deep with snipers in my pasture, and 2-hour standoff ensues. And, luckily, the pain pills and alcohol started to wear off. after a while, and I got to a point where I was just tired. I'd come off a 10-hour shift and I was done. And I was like, look, dude, I'm over it. Let's do whatever, And at the point, I thought they were taking me to the hospital to get checked out. And, they released me after I convinced the doctors, because I was a pretty good manipulator at that point. I'd convinced the docs that, I was good, that I was just talking smack, and, had no real intention of hurting myself or anybody else. And they'd let me go, and, I'd figure it out, the next day. But unfortunately, the powers that be had decided at that point that I was going to jail. And I spent 109 days in solitary confinement before I was able to have a court appearance and court ordered to a VA program for PTSD and substance abuse. And I went through that program. It was about a 90-day deal, I believe. And I faked the funk, knew what to say. And again, pretty good manipulator at this point. And got through the program and got enrolled in school. Stayed in some interim housing the program had. My plan was bank a few BAH checks from college, and get my own place and move on. And I was in really good shape again. I had the opportunity to work out a lot at the program between classes, and I had money in the bank because I was a college student, and got proud again and started making bad choices and basically, just doing me. And I don't have what rules, I'm a combat veteran. I don't have to do what you say. Who are you to me? I've done this, I've done that. And, who are you? And, basically, kind of piss on your rules. And ended up getting kicked out of that program and spent the next year and a half or so making bad choices. Ended up having to abandon school. I just anxiety levels at that point. I was in an area of Georgia going through school that was a pretty significant melting pot, and there was a lot of Muslim culture there that moved around in the traditional attire. And I couldn't, I was sitting in class and I was just, spun up tight as the freaking spring, to the point where I was going to a convenience store and down in 2 4 Locos between classes just to calm down, and get through class. And, I had this epiphany one day that one day I was going to leave the convenience store and pop the top on a drink and look up in my rearview mirror, and there was going to be, a policeman behind me. And I was already on 5 years probation for 4 felony charges at this point for terroristic threats and acts. And the judge told me, when he court ordered me that program, he's like, I'm taking into consideration the fact you've never been in trouble before in your military history. And he said, I could put you in prison for 21 years right now. I was 43 at the time. You do the math. My life had pretty much been over. My kids would have been grown, and here I was still doing things that could have put me right back in that position. Had I, been in violation of my probation. So I had this, this moment where I was like, you're about to screw up. And coincidentally, there was not a Georgia chapter of the PTSD Foundation at the time, but a buddy of mine from Fort Bragg, who had been my platoon sergeant for a while when I was working in the Arms Room, had just finished the program. We were chatting on Facebook, and he's like, bro, he said, I just finished this program. He said, and it's really helped me a lot. And he said, I can get you out here. He said, they're getting ready to hire me, as a house manager, and I know you're qualified, but, just send me the paperwork so they can document it, and, we'll get you out here. And 3 days later, I think I was on a plane to Houston. Got to the Camp Hope program of the PTSD Foundation in March of 2017. And I showed up, like I said, prior to that, I was making good money working for Lockheed, a job I could have stayed at and retired from. I had a wife and 3 kids, a 4,000 square foot house on 5.5 acres in Northwest Georgia, 2 cars that were paid for, things that you think would make the average person pretty happy or content, But I didn't want to be a security guard. I wanted to be more. 2 years before that, I was kicking in doors and and doing cool stuff. And now I'm a glorified freaking night watchman with a gun and checking ID cards. And I was miserable, and everybody else is gonna be miserable with me. And So I showed up at Camp Hope with a bag of clothes, a 40% disability check, on 5 years probation. Sons that hadn't talked to me at that point in about 3 years. It was 4 years before I was able to actually talk to them and see them and start working on mending those relationships. But yeah, life was pretty bleak. And I was walking through Camp Hope one day, and I kind of had this epiphany that I was halfway through my life. I was 45 years old, average American man that's not going to live, that much out of his 90s. And I was halfway there. And, like we talked about earlier, I was kind of doing an inventory and asking myself, what I had to show for myself. And I had done some pretty cool things, and had great kids, but, life in general, not a whole lot. And I had spent most of it angry, just because things didn't work out the way I, wanted them to or whatever. And had, like we, were talking about, had the ability to put myself in a bad mood when I had to be in social, settings. So I did not have to interact with people. I could be perfectly fine leading up to, getting to wherever I was going. And once I got there, I flipped a switch and I was an ass. And that way people wouldn't approach me, I wouldn't have to deal with them. And it was exhausting. It really was. At that point, I had clarity enough to realize that, it was physically and mentally exhausting. And, my sons, like I said, I still hadn't talked to them at that point, but I knew that was going to take time. Regardless of what I did, that was going to be between them and God. My daughter, she was too young to remember a lot of it. So we just had your basic, dad, mom and dad are divorced. Dad lives out of state type, thing going. She didn't know all the, the dirt of it. And, but she was only about 8. I'm like, my sons are almost college age. She's only 8. She's got a lot of life that she could, used to have a dad around. So it was there in that program there at Camp Hope that, I really started putting things together and, getting honest with myself, about the issues I was struggling with and, the work that I was going to have to put in if I was going to ever have that opportunity to make amends with my sons and be a present father for my daughter. Give you an example of how disillusioned and, twisted my mind was. When I got to jail that night, my main concern was not, oh my God, I got 4 felony charges and I'm in jail, and at that point didn't know I was going to get first offender, and have the opportunity to get exonerated, which I have been. But my main concern was, am I going to be able to get my pain pills in jail from the VA? That was how far gone my thinking was. My priorities were screwed up. So I had to get honest with myself that, I didn't just have, problems with this or that. I had a lot of other problems that, I was trying to, tell myself weren't issues. And I was going to have to get honest with, about all of it, if I was ever going to get to the point where I could have that life again. And I went through the program there about 7 months, and finished the program and interned with the foundation for a little bit and got hired in December of 2017 and worked for the foundation for about 8 months doing transportation, helping the guys get to their appointments and that type of thing. Still didn't have it all together though. I broke a foundation rule and got let go and went back to Georgia for about 8 months. And at this point I had made amends with my sons over the summer of 2018. When my oldest son graduated high school, I went back for his graduation and, I was able to make amends and start healing those relationships. But that was the only positive about going back to Georgia for that period of time, was being closer to my kids. Was working in a dead end job because I felt like I had to jump on the first thing I could find so I didn't get behind on child support and bills and that type of thing. And so I was still miserable. I didn't revert back to my old behaviors, but I caught myself starting to isolate again. I would come in from work because I hated my job, and I would go to my room. I'd just kind of wave and grunt to my roommate as I walked past, and go up to my room, and I would stay there till I had to get up, go to work the next morning. If I even got up to go to work and didn't find an excuse to call out. And every morning I prayed to God. I'm like, I know there's a plan. I believe that, but this can't be it. I said, and you know me, I'm kind of a hard head. You got to hit me right between the eyes with it, for me to realize it. And this went on for about 8 months. And I was talking to some friends of mine from the foundation that were still out in Texas on Messenger one afternoon, and got an offer to come back to work in the office for the Texas outreach team in April of 2019. And so I came back to Houston. I had two obstacles in my mind that stood in my way. That was one, how my daughter was going to take it after getting used to me being back, for a while. And I was still on probation. And so I got in touch with probation, and they were okay with it. And I actually found out that I was going to be done sooner than I had, planned, or expected based off of my calendar. And so I got back out to Houston, and within a month, I got my first offender discharge for the 4 felony charges and the 1 misdemeanor simple battery that I had, and was completely exonerated, like to the point where year before last, I was issued a concealed carry permit in the state of Texas. To me, that was like, by law of man, the ultimate proof that I had moved past my past, to be able to, go from having 4 felony charges and being on probation to being able to have a record clean enough, to be issued a permit to carry a handgun again. I know that's probably insignificant to a lot of people, but again, for me, that was like, if my record's this clean, then it's pretty clean.
Eric, just so people understand, there is a ton of things that you had to do to process through that whole rigor. That's a benefit to us combat veterans, to veterans, that the court system has in place, should you choose to take and follow this path that is before you. But it wasn't easy for you to get that correct.
Absolutely not.
You had to accomplish a huge amount of things to have that privilege back.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I had to be honest with myself and with everybody else in my family. I had to humble myself, beyond, anything I thought was possible. I mean, I had to admit to things that, I was ashamed of, and be able to talk about them and address them, and realize that, grown men don't act this way. Husbands and fathers don't act this way. You don't treat people this way. Not everything revolves around you. It's not all about you. I go through my days now trying to be the best version of me I can be on that given day, because every day, it's different. The best version of me today is, be a different version tomorrow, but, I need to be the best one I can that day, because every day, presents its own trials and obstacles, that you have to get through. I had to go through, anger management, emotional regulation. I had to be able to learn how to know what my triggers were, that would set me off. I was at a point where I didn't just get angry. I raged. And when I raged, look out, I didn't even know how it was going to end up. I mean, just pure rage. And I had to be able to learn how that felt before, and be able to stop it before it got to that point. Learn how to, check myself and know that, hey, this situation is taking you, in a bad direction, and you need to get yourself, back to true north again, and get yourself centered. And that came with finding different coping mechanisms, positive outlets, things that I could do when I felt myself starting to get spun up, that I could go do, that would, stop that cycle and get me back to, a calm, centered demeanor. For me now, that's going to the gym a lot. That year and a half that I was, mentioned making bad choices between the programs, I sat in a leather chair all day, and I called the captain's chair, and I drank Guinness and watched Alaskan Bush People and Deadliest Catch. And one day I woke up and I realized I had gained 80 pounds. The year prior to that, I ran the Peachtree Road Race in Atlanta on the 4th of July. A 10K road race. Despite my injuries, and age and everything, feel like I did, pretty decent. Did 10K in just a little over an hour. But all of a sudden, I couldn't walk around. I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs. So working out got to be one of my big outlets. One of my big tools I used. I play guitar. Been playing on and off since I was 14, and started getting back into that. Now some nights if I can't sleep, I'll sit up. I'll play guitar for 4 hours. At night. Now I have a really cool car. I like to go drive a lot. Coincidentally, squirrels can't outrun challengers. I found that out over the weekend.
Yeah. I heard you say that earlier this morning. That was good stuff.
But yeah, I had to seek a relationship with God. I don't expect everybody to believe the same things I do, and I'm not going to push it on anybody. But it works for me. Recognizing that there's a force out there bigger than me that makes everything work. That keeps this planet spinning and puts everything in its place where it's supposed to be, and basically holds the keys to the master plan. Because I do believe that there's a plan out there for everybody, and I believe mine now is doing whatever I can to help other veterans, or anybody else for that matter, that's struggling, not have to go through the things I did.
And obviously the PTSD Foundation of America plays a huge role in this, running warrior groups, having battle buddies. I mean, talk a little bit about why that's really helping you out too.
Well, yeah,
even though you work for them, but at the same time, there's so much you get and you give because of that.
Oh yeah, and it's a give back. I have to keep doing these things, that got me to where I'm at. Just like maintenance on a machine, you have to maintain a machine if you want it to keep working the way it's supposed to work. And if I'm going to continue to be, a decent person, I'm not perfect by any means, but if I'm going to continue to be, a functioning member of society, and somebody I can stand to look at in the mirror, I have to maintain, myself on a daily basis. So being connected, having the ability to talk to other veterans and be around other veterans that are experiencing similar situations, whatever the source may be. I think I told you earlier, I don't think, that I experienced such traumatic events overseas that I couldn't process or deal with. It was my lack of response and emotion to the things that were happening over there that bothered me more than anything. The complete disassociation to the point where I could walk past my daughter at 3 years old crying, wanting to ride to the store with daddy, and just say no, because I knew I was going to go, get a beer or something to drink it on the way, and, didn't want my kids seeing it. And I was, again, it was Eric's world. I was going to do me,
Right.
And now I have the opportunity to reach out to other veterans when they're struggling and talk to them and show them that, there are alternatives. There are ways to divert, your temper tantrums or whatever you want to call them, because a lot of times that's basically what it boiled down to. I didn't like the way things were going for me that day, and I was going to throw a fit. We have warrior groups, and it's a peer-led process group, and we get to talk about what we're struggling with, and having that ability to continue to tell my story and talk, it keeps it fresh in my mind. It's kind of like exposure therapy. It reminds me of where I've been and where I'm at now, and being able to help other guys helps me stay where I need to be.
Yeah, I fully agree. For me, it's the same way, man. I feel like I put myself in check. I also get to hear from other people. I get the aha moments. There's so many things that group benefits. And obviously, I think a lot of societies wanting these groups, they start pouring in. I'm hearing a lot of, hey, where's a group for me? And they may not fit in the categories of the combat vet, but there's other things that I really want to see them try to do. But Eric, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, obviously they can do it through my program. They can hit me up anytime. But he is with the PTSD Foundation of America. You can find him on that. Throw out any last thoughts or any contact info you feel comfortable with. And we'll have you back on the show too, because Creating Chaos is another series that I got through my show here, and we just started that last week. But there's guys that have some really dark, deep things that they want to talk about. In doing that, it shows a different picture of things that you may or may not ever know. The movies depict it pretty well for the most part, but to really get that down and dirty story is going to be important. So I hope to have you on my show again for that. So many cool things. I mean, you have a lot of things going on, man. Thanks for sharing this cool life journey, and the bad, the good, the ugly, and the squirrel running your car too. That's a good piece.
I didn't try to hit him, but no, seriously, on a serious note, if you're struggling out there, if you're a combat veteran, you're not alone. You're really not. I know a lot of us think we are, that nobody gets it, but there's plenty out there that do. Look us up online, ptsdusa.org, all the contact information to our crisis line, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, manned by a combat veteran, 877-717-PTSD. Or, if you're in the Georgia area, you can get the links to contact us at the Georgia chapter. And I don't care what state you're in. If you're struggling, you find me on there, you call me. Get that information to, the Georgia chapter and call me. I'll talk to you, whatever state you're in, and get you in contact with who you need to get to that's going to be closer and best able to find the resources that you need. But, just don't sit there and struggle alone, man. Don't do it, because we're out here and, it's about brothers helping brothers.
Good stuff, Eric. Hey, thanks a lot. We'll talk again, man. I appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah. Hey, this is the show, Combat Vet Vision. You never know who you're going to get on here. The stories that are told, the impacts that it has on people's lives, whatever that might be. Hey, if you're struggling, you're dealing, check the show notes out, look this up, look me up. My number's out there. Emails are out there. Until next time, strength and honor. Out.